quick moment, but you see our two competitors here. One you should be familiar with from the stream, like Chip had said. Nicholas Moffitt here, his first big finish of the season was 6th place in Las Vegas with Golden Go. Then he top 16 Houston Regionals with Dragapult Dusknoir, which he's on and since March, and now he is here to try and make his way to a first place. No stranger to a top 8.
Absolutely, and he's got his reps in with this deck across the field. However, I think this is going to be a fan favorite. That's Mega Lucario. You heard me right, Mega Lucario with all the fixins. This deck has been well out of the spotlight thanks to the dominance of Gardevoir for the past several formats, but with Gardevoir taking a bit of a break, it's Mega Lucario's time to shine, and Xavier's showing here today could be a big one. His best result is a top 128 at Los Angeles Regionals in 2024, so back in the home field again. He's currently 5-1 against Dragapult decks this tournament, particularly 3-0 against Dragapult Dusknoir varieties, so looks like this may be a matchup he knows super well. And with his back to the wall, he managed so far to beat Henry Chow and Noah Sakajin. So that's a lot of well-known names have been taken down to get here so far. Nicholas may be the next on that totem pole.
The thing is with Mega Lucario is that I think a lot of people agree that this deck can hit very hard. I mean, you're not even playing a stage 2 in this deck. It's really just evolving up into your stage 1s. And a lot of times now in this format, a lot of players are kind of vying to go first. So we'll see how Xavier is going to handle Nicholas' list here, but as you can see on what's going on here, both players actually get to look at each other's list, which means that we can also talk about some of the cool things that Xavier has in his list. The one copy of Mega Signal here, where you're just able to go and grab your Mega Pokemon. Also great supporters in there like Black Belts training to be able to hit those high numbers like Dragapult. But the one copy of Tarragon for the recovery, that one's got to be interesting.
Haven't seen that very frequently. You're able to put up to 4 in any combination of fighting Pokemon and basic fighting energy cards from your discard pile into your hand. And combined with Mega Lucario EX's Aura Jab attack, it also pulls basic fighting energy from your discard into your benched Pokemon. Lots of ways to make sure that any energy disruption or any knockouts discarding your energy will not affect you in the long run. Xavier's got plenty of resources and recovery to keep those energy in play and use them on attackers such as this Mega Lucario, but also perhaps Hariyama, which deals great damage as a single prizer, enough to knock out a Pheasantipity even without the weakness being factored in. And maybe occasionally a Solrock or a Lunatone. Solrock was able to deal enough damage to knock out a Dreepy, and that could make the difference. And it's also able to knock out Duskull even with the resistance because of Solrock's attack effect. So whichever strategy Xavier's going to go for, there are plenty of tools in that deck to do it. And also, we haven't seen the Ace-Spec Secret Box in many decks this format, despite it being a former favorite. Now it's sort of fallen off for Unfair Stamp, but it's a battle of the Ace-Specs as well.
Sure, Xavier's deck is going to give us plenty of treats along the way, including the 2 copies of Carmine as well. There's just plenty of treats to go around, but of course, like you had mentioned, still playing this Solrock Lunatone package, which is so strong. Solrock, a great early game attacker to take down Dreepies and Duskulls, and then Lunatone providing that Lunar Cycle to be able to continuously keep drawing cards, but we know Nicholas Moffitt. Let's just take a look at the prize cards. Nothing too worrying here. That one copy, or one of the 2 copies of Gravity Mountain I'm kind of looking at, that does help you hit your high Dragapult numbers. 1 copy of Riolu, a couple of consistency cards here, but I'm not too worried for either player.
Not at all. And anytime you need to get a one-hit KO going, you've also got access to 4 Premium Power Pro, an incredibly strong item card that lets you deal an extra 30 damage. You can stack those up and get an extra 120 damage on a turn if need be. Kind of like a Dustoir, but you keep it at home and it's a 4-card combo.
Absolutely. Well, we are just about ready to get into this top 8. Mega Lucario in top 8. Love the handshake there. And we are heading in. And Nicholas Moffitt going to be drawing first here. Let's see what setup he's got. I do see a Dreepy. I do see a Duskull and a Monkey Dory. Can't use that Lily's Determination on first turn, but at least he's got a Dreepy and energy and something to go along with it.
Certainly doesn't hurt to have so many Psychic Pokemon in hand, but most of them are not attackers. Now, the cool thing here is that Monkey Dory's actual attack, Mind Bend, is able to deal weakness damage plus the confusion. So that may be relevant for some, maybe knocking out Makuhita or knocking out a Riolu in play. But so far, it looks like the strategy for the first turn is going to be the same as usual. Get those Dreepies going. Once the Dreepies are out on the field, you'll be able to get ready with Dracloak next turn. Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
some sequencing there with the Risky Ruins. The choice was to put down the basics before the stadium and then put just one Pokemon down after the Risky Ruins to put just a little bit of energy on the board for the Monkey Dory.
It's also Risky Ruins there because Nicholas knows that Xavier is going to fill up this board right now with multiple Riolus, a Makuhita, and the Soul Rock and Lunatone. So that's a lot of damage already going on to the board as well. But thankfully, starting Budu as well, able to go straight into the Monkey Dory. So Monkey Dory is going to be able to essentially tank a hit from a Soul Rock if Xavier is going to be able to get this Riolu out of the active here. So let's check out this Pokepad. Didn't get to see the rest of his hand though, but usually on these first couple searches, players are going to be looking for that Soul Rock and Lunatone combo so they can start using that Lunar Cycle.
There it is, the first damage on that Lunatone. That's part 1 of the draw 3 card combo special we're looking for, but instead going to fill up that hand with resources. The plan here for Xavier seems to be get those attackers ready just in case by putting down their basics. So we're going to need to see some Riolu. We're going to need to see that Soul Rock if we want to draw extra cards. And I wouldn't sneeze at getting a Makuhita in play because that Hariyama Heave Ho Catcher ability is going to allow you to do what a boss's orders does without using your supporter. The Hariyama is able to choose a Pokemon on your opponent's bench, drag it straight up to the active as an ability. It only happens once you evolve it. So putting a Makuhita in play this turn and leaving it around for a little while will create a opportunity to deal extra damage to a target of choice. For example, the Meowth EX, which is weak to fighting types, that rarely comes up. This is the time where it comes up. A single use of Aura Jab from Mega Lucario EX is enough to take 2 prizes in that scenario by attaching a single energy. That's incredible efficiency. Bang for your buck.
Absolutely. Thankfully for Xavier is going to be able to find 2 fighting gongs here. So not only able to grab the Soul Rock, and even though a couple of damage counters will be going down onto it, but will be able to find a backup Riolu or that Makuhita as well here. Let's see what the Lunar Cycle is going to bring though. Might want to thin and use the second fighting gong first though, but here we go. 3 big cards here. Needs a little bit more before we're comfortable. Premium Power Pro and the Tarragon and Meowth for next turn. Might have to be an Ultra Ball to find the Makuhita and then using the Fighting Gong for second Riolu.
Could also use the Fighting Gong for the Fighting Energy. It's an extremely useful item card that searches for either a Pokemon of the Fighting type or a Fighting type energy that's specifically a basic Pokemon of the Fighting type. So you could use it to fill up your bench, or you could use it to protect your only Riolu in play. Really just depends on what Xavier thinks is the correct move. Leaving your bench open doesn't have a ton of advantages in this matchup. Normally when you're versus Dragapult, you do have to manage your bench somewhat to prevent the Phantom Dive 6 damage counters from taking a lot of prizes all at once. In this scenario, most of Xavier's Pokemon should be able to handle at least 1 or 2 Phantom Dives, even with Monkey Dory factored in. So filling up the bench is not a crazy concern. It's also going to create some opportunities for Xavier to leave the bench open for a Meowth EX later in case the hand somehow gets hit with an unfair stamp or a judge or other hand disruption. Right now, it looks like the strategy is just to fill up that bench, make sure you're going to have access to an attacker next turn. Very strong move, and for the same reason the energy has been placed on the benched Riolu. By putting the energy onto the benched Riolu instead of the active one, you don't get to use its accelerating stab attack for an extra 30 damage, but since Monkey Dory resists fighting types anyway, that would be subtracted by 30, that would be 0 damage. Makes tons of sense to put it where it's a lot safer, where it cannot get knocked out by a Mind Bend or perhaps damaged by a Itchy Pollen.
Absolutely. Using the Mega Signal as well. I feel like we never really see this card when trying to find Mega Evolution Pokemon, but you can just go in your deck and find one. So bringing Mega Lucario up into the hand for next turn. Pass back on over to Xavier here, or to Nicholas, excuse me. And honestly, looking at Nicholas's board, there's got to be a couple more Dreepies that come into play because that Makuhita is ready to evolve next turn for Heave Ho Catcher.
You definitely want to get more Dreepy in play as soon as possible. Dreepy is the gatekeeper to all of your strategies. No matter how many Dusclops or Dusknoir you have in play, you still need a Dragapult to do your attacking with, and you still need a Dracloak to search for those cards that you need. Instead, going to go for the Lily's Shuffle, fill up the hand. There's the Buddy Puff, and that should be enough to fill out the bench with all the key resources to stick to this game. The plan this turn, very simple. Don't lose any of your Pokemon, and ideally, since there's not going to be a Dragapult Rare Candy, I don't think, then maybe a Itchy Pollen. But if you're able to get that Rare Candy off, that'd be pretty great.
The thing is, with the attachment on to Duskull. Because Mega Lucario is weak to Psychic, that Shadow Bind can do a ton of damage. We'll be doing 300 damage there. So that is technically an option if Nicholas chooses to go for it as well here.
Excuse me? Attacking with Dust Noir?
And it is weak to Psychic. I mean, Nicholas is playing the right energy count to get up to that, is playing 3 Psychic energy. So if push comes to shove, absolutely can. Most of the time, this Dusknoir is really used to kind of soften some of the hit points. And thanks to Risky Ruins, already 2 damage counters on the Riolu with the energy onto the bench as well here. So damage counters coming down. I'm interested to see if Nicholas is going to get that Dreepy up into a Dracloak, or is he anticipating seeing the Hariyama evolve for Heave-Ho Catcher onto that Dreepy?
Yeah, Heave-Ho Catcher could come in at any time. Okay, looks like going for the Dracloak. Pretty standard move here to make sure that there's lots of cards in the hand, but there was definitely a chance of a Rare Candy immediate attacker, and we never want to discount that. But because
nuts.
Right? But because the energy was attached to the Duskull, which I didn't even see that as an option. You never see Dust Noir attack. I mean, that would be absolute cinema if that happened. But in the meantime, we're going to be checking through with that Poke Pad. Ideally, since you can't evolve your 2 bench Dreepies this turn off the Buddy Buddy Poffin, ideally the move here is to just keep that hand full of resources for the next couple turns. This isn't like Mega Frostlass where you're concerned about your hand size. Nicholas can do whatever he likes with his hand at the moment. And the same way that Xavier used the Mega Signal to put the Lucario in hand, Nicholas is making sure all those resources are in hand and available. There's a second mind game in play too, where, yeah, I see that you have a Lucario that's about to come up. I'm going to respond with showing you that there's a Dusclops. You know, he didn't jump straight to the Dust Noir either and say, I have a Rare Candy, I'm going to Dusclops into Dust Noir. Just holding that card for a little bit.
Unfortunately, no Rare Candy in the list. Believe it or not, at one point there was a time where it was this was considered slow pull, and now we have 100 different ways of playing Dragapult here. But there's the evolution into the Mega Lucario EX here, and a couple more draws off of the Lunar Cycle, but that's the attachment for turn. This list does also play 1 or 2 copies of this Rocky Fighting Energy as well, and it does prevent all effects of attacks used by the opponent's Pokemon, which can very much help here. So, but a Premium Power Pro and the energy attachment is going to allow for Xavier to take the first knockout here and either power up this Riolu on the bench or even start to get this Makuhita ready to go, because the Hariyama actually does 210 damage on its own.
And that Rocky Energy being able to prevent the Phantom Dive is extremely relevant. So depending on how the rest of this match shakes out, that could prevent a last-minute prize claim. Because even if you attack with Dust Noir, with the weakness, that's only doing 300 damage. Lucario has 340 hit points. That's not going to be enough for a one-hit KO, even if you factor in Monkey Dory's extra 30 from Adrenabrain. So making sure that you cannot be hit by a Phantom Dive is a real strategy. But of course, Xavier is packing that one of Wally's Compassion. We've seen that used to great effect in many matchups. That is one of the best ways to prevent a one-hit knockout turn from Dust Noir, as long as they don't use the Dragapult in the same turn.
I love what Xavier just did as well, immediately using the Pokepad to set up another Makuhita, and there it is, Hariyama's ability, Heave-Ho Catcher, which acts as a gust, and then using Mega Lucario's Aura Jab to get some more Pokemon set up, can just attach fighting energy to your fighting Pokemon any which way you want, and of course it's going straight to that Hariyama. Great use of bench space and resources by Xavier. Let's see how Nicholas is going to respond.
That was a rough turn for Nicholas, especially because Buddy was not able to use Itchy Pollen that turn, meaning that Premium Power Pro was available, meaning that Fighting Gong was available. A lot of the cards in Xavier's decks are items, so being able to turn those off could be relevant for these next couple turns. Fortunately for Xavier, this board is very scary already. You've got a Riolu in case you need to charge up a second Lucario. You've got the Lucario in the active that's completely undamaged. You have another Makuhita ready to go, and you have a Hariyama that's one attachment away, just one turn away from taking a big knockout on almost anything on the board, except for a Dragapult EX, none of which are in play yet. So no matter what Nicholas comes out with this turn, Xavier has plans on board ready to deal with it. This is definitely putting Dragapult in a precarious position. Nicholas has to take this turn to find not just resources on his bench with this Buddy Buddy Poffin, but Ideally, he needs to get Dust Noir going as soon as possible.
Yeah, there's a very real world here where Nicholas is about to pivot his plan to be attacking with Shadowbind from Dusk Noir. See how exactly he wants to go about it, but there's the evolution into the Drakloak. See a couple of searches here, but there's the Meowth as well coming onto the bench here. Has to watch out. That is a prime target for another Heave-Ho catcher here. Crispin is going to be the supporter, so potentially it is going to be a Shadowbind here. And then I do believe Nicholas may already have the Unfair stamp in the hand as well. So we'll see if Xavier is going to be able to get out of his plans.
Look at that Dust Noir right on the bottom. He's hoping to search for it using perhaps a Poke Pad, or can't really use Lily's Determination, just use the Crispin. It's going to have to be off that Unfair stamp. If there's no Dust Noir in play, that's going to be really awkward. You could just attack with the Dusclops, but what is that, 50 damage? Who is attacking with Dusclops? This is a crazy regional.
Let's see if he's going to be able to find it here. Fortunately for Nicholas, that Pokepad card, so good. Well, yes, it can absolutely find your Cloaks, which is what it's meant for. Can also find your Dusk Noirs as well, though. Nicholas, fresh 8 cards because he hasn't taken a prize card. Nope, that's Unfair stamp. I'm thinking Lilies. 5 cards here off of the Unfair stamp. See if he's going to be able to get something done, because if he's not able to find this Dusk Noir, I know a pretty good Heave-Ho catcher target for next turn.
Oh, yeah, that is looking very juicy. Fortunately, there's going to be access to a little bit more card draw.
Oh no, it's the wrong one. Is there any search in the hand?
I mean, we did just use the Meowth EX this turn. This was a very high commitment play from Nicholas. Took a bit of a risk. I don't think it's paid off.
I mean, Nicholas just has to hope that the Unfair stamp doesn't give Xavier any sort of gust here. So it is going to be the Itchy Pollen. The Mega Lucario seems to be okay here. And you got to think about it too. I mean, this is a lot of energy already committed on the board for Nicholas. If there was Heave-Ho catcher, boss's orders as well, because Xavier does play that. This is pretty harsh for Nicholas's next turn.
I want to note that the Buddy Itchy Pollen was relevant here because this Dust Noir deals 300 damage, which that plus a Monkey Dory would be enough to deal the 330, plus the 10 from Badu is enough for a knockout on this Lucario. Unfortunately, there's just not enough damage on Nicholas' side of the board for that to happen. There needs to be another damage counter before that one-hit KO turn is possible. Now, there's the Duskull coming down. It can't evolve into Dusclops this turn, but if it were able to, that could cover the last, couple HP points.
Well, there's that Lily's Determination I was talking about last turn instead of an Unfair stamp. So now Nicholas will be able to draw 8 cards here. Still looking for that Dusk Noir and even a Dark Energy to move that to move those damage counters over to the Mega Lucario here. 8 big cards. Still also does have 2 Recon Directives as well. There's the Ultra Ball that can guarantee it. See what else he wants to do this turn, because I'm pretty sure that this Lucario can go down.
I like the Dragapult in hand as well, because there's a fully charged up Dracloak ready to go. It's just a matter of when do you want to lose that Recon Directive access, because once you evolve, you cannot continue to use the abilities of the lower stage Pokemon. So far, just gonna take the time, figure out the moves. Plenty of time in top 8 to figure out. It's a little bit more than the rounds.
There it is. There it is. Right off the Recon Directive, and you can see the evolution right there. But what Nicholas is now looking for is this weird final piece of the puzzle, and that is going to be this Dark Energy. I don't see a way of getting it. So this Mega Lucario might just end up being okay. It can't retreat next turn because that's the effect of Shadowbind, and there's no Rocky Energy on this Mega Lucario here. But still, 300 damage. That's looking pretty good for a great multi-prize turn for Dragapult to take.
Right, but you can't consider yourself safe at this point in the game. That Lucario is extremely likely to get knocked out either by the Dusclops next turn or by a Phantom Dive, although it does have the Rocky Energy, so that would prevent it from Phantom Dive damage, except it would need to be pulled out of the active in order for that to happen. Ooh, Gravity Mountain's relevant here. That's going to decrease Dust Noir's HP enough to take the knockout with resistance.
Still, though, that's a lot of energy committed. Nicholas is playing a good amount of recovery inside of his deck as well, is also playing 1 copy of the Rose's Encouragement that we've seen kind of pop up here and there in some lists. I don't think we've seen it gone all the way through to show the true power of the card, but does still have Night Stretchers left as well. I think there may be one in the hand.
Hopefully so. Anything to get some attackers on board, although we do know the Dragapult is ready to go. Took its time, finally ready. We're going to get a couple more recon directives first and then start dealing damage. Now, the ideal scenario here, if the Rocky Energy weren't in play, would be to use your own boss's orders, perhaps even boss up the Hariyama that's been giving you so much trouble, maybe the Makuhita, or maybe even the other benched Mega Lucario, put some damage there. Unfortunately, that is not going to be available at this time, because if you were to do that, your goal is to take the knockout on this Mega Lucario in the active once it's been pushed back using Phantom Dive. Rocky Energy is going to prevent that from happening. So instead, you're going to need to use perhaps the Dusclops, perhaps the Monkey Dory to take those last damage counters, get that Lucario way out of the way, and then start cleaning up with a 200 HP damage Phantom Dive. That's just not going to be available with that Special Energy. Very impactful card. Over on the other side, Xavier just does not have a ton of cards in hand to respond to whatever play comes out next. That's the problem. You only have your Lunar Cycle to work with. If you do not fill your hand with cards, particularly after an unfair stamp, you may have a lot of slow turns in a row. That's going to give Nicholas time to get back in the game.
The thing is, though, this is going to be a massive turn from Nicholas in terms of prize cards being taken. We'll be able to take the active 4-3. And then I think the biggest target on the bench to send those damage counters to is actually the Makuhita here. And that's just because you want to avoid a little bit of gust onto that Meowth. Now, granted, Gravity Mountain is in play for Xavier here, so that Dragapult is going to have at least a little bit less HP. But I'm interested to see how Nicholas is going to be able to guarantee that energy to come down on that third Dragapult, because this one may be going down without a stadium bump very soon.
A single attachment in Aura Rave will be enough to knock out this damaged Dragapult thanks to the risky Ruins damage from earlier. And there's also an interesting scenario where if you choose to knock out that Makuhita, you've created a 7-prize game scenario. We mentioned this a little bit across the stream. There's 6 prizes to claim in the course of the game, and a Mega Evolution Pokemon gives up 3 of those prize cards. So knocking out 2 Mega Evolution Pokemon, both Mega Lucario, would be enough to close out the game. Makuhita isn't necessary to hit all 6 prizes because 3 of them come off the Mega Lucario. But just like you said, having the Makuhita on board is so oppressive, could lead to a knockout on Meowth, could create easy prizes for Xavier. Nicholas doesn't want to do that. Nicholas wants to, 1, take prizes as fast as possible, 2, prevent Xavier's prizes from being taken as fast as possible. Overall, just trying to manage this board state. Knocking out the Makuhita may not get you closer to a victory, but it does get you a little bit farther from losing. That may be worth it in the trade-off scheme.
Absolutely. See how exactly he wants to play this turn. It will just be choosing to damage the second Mega Lucario here, too, taking his time. Nicholas knows what he's doing. His accomplishments speak for themselves, but the big bump of the Gravity Mountain is also huge here as well. Nicholas could line himself up, honestly, for a 6-prize turn if he so chooses, if he finds the Gus. I know he is holding a Meowth in hand as well. Still has plenty of resources here, so could very well get the job done either, I mean, could be as fast as next turn, really. But we'll see how Xavier's going to be able to respond. It's going to take a lot of premium power pros to get it done.
And we do know that the other Gravity Mountain is all the way at the top of Xavier's prizes, so we're not going to see another Gravity Mountain or a Brave. That's just not going to be available, but Nicholas doesn't know that. I really love the way that the damage has been spread around to both Mega Lucario here. Dragapult is all about putting damage down at the right time. So you're not super concerned about getting all those knockouts once in a way and everything getting knocked away by Wally's Compassion. You're okay with leaving damage counters on the board and creating a multiple prize end game. Really, that's what people have been doing with Dragapult all season. That's one of the reasons it's so strong. So choosing to boss up the Lucario here and create 2 easy knockouts, one with perhaps a Dusclops that's available next turn, and the other with more Phantom Dives, could be enough to take a 6-prize turn. So I'm going to be on the lookout for that, personally.
Looking for the secret box to also come into play here as well. But there's that Wally's Compassion off of the Lunar Cycle. It might just have to be that. But the problem is, if you heal one of your Mega Lucarios, you got to be mindful that the energy goes back to hand. So is there a way for Xavier to heal this Mega Lucario with Wally's Compassion and then recycle the energy back to the other one? I don't think so. Might just have to take another Aura Jab here and keep powering up the other fighting type Pokemon on the bench.
There's an interesting dichotomy of which Mega Lucario are you going to heal. They're both damaged. One of them has more than the other, but one's in the active. Mega Lucario has a retreat cost of 2. That means you need 2 energy attached to it in order to retreat. So, and you also need 2 energy attached to it to use Mega Brave anyway. Whichever one you heal cannot get a second energy attached to it in the same turn. There's no Crispin for the same type of energy. Crispin will only search out energy of 2 different types. It's not like Xavier's even playing Crispin. So there's no path to get multiple fighting energy down on the same Pokemon per turn except through that Aura Jab, which is an attack, which means that energy will only be usable on the next turn rather than at the end of your turn once your attack ends your turn.
I'm wondering if there's any room for Xavier to use this Hariyama that currently has 2 energy on it to try and do some sort of different prize trade rather than just going head first into a Mega Lucario here so we can avoid some damage. But I'm not quite sure if I'm seeing it here, but still, I mean, look at Nicholas's side here. 5 prize cards still left to take, but in a great position as well. Didn't lose the Dragapult, will be able to spend this turn starting to get the Dracloak ready and even potentially reestablishing a Dreepy if he so chooses, or maybe even start to get another Dusknoir ready. I mean, the concept of a 6 prize turn is very possible, or even a 5 prize turn with this deck. Nicholas going to check the resources that he has. And I think that's the name of the game now with Dragapult. Look at all the energy already not available to him. You have to be very careful of how you're using these Night Stretchers.
Nicholas also knows that there was only one Wally's Compassion in the deck from that open deck list search. That's not something Nicholas could have known earlier in the tournament versus other decks, but knows right now versus Xavier. So assuming that was noticed during the initial search, Nicholas knows that whatever damage counters get put down are going to stay put down. There's nothing that can pick up supporters.
Could also just be using the Night Stretcher to find a Dark Energy for Monkey Dory and then moving the 30 damage that he has over on his side back over to the Mega Lucario on the other side. This very well could be him sealing this game right here if he's able to get up into a Dusknoir as well and then using Phantom Dive for the Lucario in the active. Can he fit the pieces together?
I don't think he's going to be able to get to a Dusknoir this game, but a Dusclops could do some damage. Really just depends on where the objectives are here. And, you know, there's another interesting play possible next turn by Xavier where he retreats this damaged active Mega Lucario because it's about to get hit by Phantom Dive, no questions. And by putting the Hariyama in the active, that requires Nicholas to search for a Boss's Orders. We're seeing one right now. What is this going to be about? Is the plan here to preemptively boss up the Hariyama?
Could just be
he's just going to discard it.
Should just be an Ultra Ball here to try and protect the Dragapult as well.
Oh, wait. Okay, game could be on board right now. What Nicholas could do is use the Dusclops to knock out one of the Soul Rock or Lunatone, and then you'd set it up for the knockout, and then you would use Phantom Dive to get the remainder. And then with the 3 prizes off of the other one, I think you would have to gust something up for that.
Ooh, there's the Rose's Encouragement, though, but I think Boss's Orders might have been the more correct play. I think you're right here. I mean, the 3 damage counters from Monkey Dory can be absolutely moved over to the Mega Lucario on the bench here, but I feel like Nicholas is just prioritizing getting another Dragapult set up here to get things going.
Trying to figure out if they've got the math right, but I think he just got locked in on that prize map path where if you take out 2 Lucario, you're all set for the game. Did not notice that you could take those 2 prizes remaining, because you already got one, off of the benched Soul Rock Lunatone combo. That's very easy to miss if you get locked into a certain game plan, especially if you're worried about playing a 7 or 8 prize card game. Looks like Nicholas trying to be more resource, conservative, instead choosing to take the knockout on both Megas is going to close away that option. That's very unfortunate.
Yeah, it's also, you don't even need to take both Megas. You can just take one of the Soul Rock or the Lunatone on the bench as well here. So unfortunately for Nicholas, not seeing the line directly, but still very much in a okay spot, especially because Xavier still needs to take 3 prizes and Nicholas only needs to take 2 and will have some prize card room with the Dusclops for next turn as well. So it is going to be Phantom Dive, putting all of the energy onto the Lunatone, and that Mega Lucario definitely needs some help, but Wally is gone.
Okay, there's a Judge in hand. That could be really, really helpful here to get rid of some of those cards in Nicholas's hand. Unfortunately, Nicholas's board state is so well set up that unless that he recognizes it, he doesn't see a way to get 3 prizes before everything closes down. Going to a game 2, Nicholas Moffitt clearing that Mega Lucario. Those were rough games for Xavier, especially that turn where he needed to take a knockout and instead was only able to deal with the Wide Compassion, only able to deal enough with the Aura Jab to just get set up for a 2-hit KO. Needed that 1-hit KO, needed the stadium in play. It just wasn't able to stick around.
Also had a game anyway with if he had just boss's orders instead. One of the single prizers moved the energy from Monkey Dory over to the Mega Lucario, and then just, you know, winning from there. But can always go the long way around the scenic route. But let's take a look at the replay for this game one between Nicholas Moffitt and Xavier Phelan. I mean, it started out great for Xavier. Look, both boards are also set up as well, but it was really coming down to hitting weakness with Dusknoir with that Shadow Bind and committing so much energy to it. But Nicholas Moffitt able to move and maneuver these damage counters around, and especially this Makuhita going down was so important to make sure there was no gust in play for Xavier here. And here it is, those damage counters, sometimes they get hard to keep track of, but that, once again, is the sign that Nicholas knows what he's doing with this deck.
I mean, when's the last time you saw a Dusknoir use its attack instead of Curse Blast? Attaching 3 energy to a Dusknoir, when does that ever happen?
Well, it is going to be double Pokepad starting for Xavier in this game number 2 here. And no risky ruins in play either, so Xavier is free from damage counters for now, can definitely get this board set up and going. The only part about Xavier here is that you can't use Buddy Poffin for anything in this deck, really. Everything has 80 HP and above, so you're actually really reliant on these Pokepads. I see one big problem with these prize cards, and it's going to be Nicholas's unfair stamp, unfortunately, not able for use, which seemed to have done him a lot of good. I will say, though, 2 copies of Fighting Energy being in the prize is not too much of a sweat, because there is 9 copies of basic Fighting Energy, but also that copy of Petrol that is a one-of, like we had talked about a little bit earlier. There's a lot of one-of supporters, but no unfair stamp, no Pheasantipity, not exactly what you want to see.
And no judge as well. There's not going to be any hand disruption coming up from Nicholas this game, so if, well, until he starts taking surprises. So if Xavier can capitalize on that, maybe he could build a pretty big hand full of resources he can use for the rest of the game, prevent that sort of slow gameplay he had to have after Nicholas's unfair stamp set him down to 2. Ooh.
Whoa, all right, Secret Box turn 1. You love to see it if you have it, but the thing is, what I'm looking at is a discarding of the one of Wally's Compassion here, which seemed to have give Xavier at least a turn in, plus also a Hariyama and a Gravity Mountain. But this ace spec, if you don't know it, you gotta love it. It's an item, a tool, a supporter, and a stadium as well. So it will be Xavier at least setting himself up for next turn, because all of that hand disruption from Nicholas is gone.
And that was risky, because that was actually it wasn't the first deck search. There were some Pokepad played, but there were, you know, a lot of cards going into that discard pile that turn that could be pivotal later on. So choosing to commit early game to getting your setup over that late game could have some unintended side effects later, depending on how the rest of Xavier's turns play out. Going to immediately pass over Nicholas's strategy here. It worked the last time. I think we're going to see another Dusknoir attack. Having both Crispin and Rose's encouragement to set that up, too. I mean, there's plenty of outs to get to it. Monkey Dory is certainly nothing to sneeze at either. Monkey Dory will be able to do weakness damage to multiple of the Pokemon on Xavier's side of the field. At the moment, though, just going to strengthen his hand, make sure he has everything he needs to get maybe 4 Dreepy set up.
I was about to say, I think we're missing a very key part of this deck, and that is Dreepy and or your Duskull. But my goodness, why not just draw into both of them and a Buddy Buddy Poffin to go alongside as well as your risky ruins. So Nicholas can also start setting up the damage on his side as well here. Buddy Buddy Poffin being played does have 2 Dreepy in hand, so this very well could be just for going automatically for 2 Duskulls. I love how Nicholas immediately looked to see if he had Dusknoir available to him, because that is one of the key pieces and a key attacker in this matchup, weird as it sounds.
Ooh, if that's your best attacker, you want to make sure you have access to it. Good thing that was the first thing you looked for. Okay, going through this, I mean, look at the speed at which he's shuffling through his hands. I mean, that takes so much skill to just do it so quickly. These top players can really show how long that they've practiced and played this game just in the way they handle their cards. I mean, I can't shuffle that fast.
See, though, looking through the deck once again, back to Nicholas's prizes. It's Pheasantipity and a Unfair Stamp, one Dracloak, one Dragapult, and a Duskull, unfortunately. So we'll not be able to get 2 lines set up here, but at least one is threatening enough where Xavier knows that that Shadow Bind attack could very well be coming.
Xavier saw it last game, has to be preparing for it this time. So far, just choosing to set up with the 1 Makuhita, 2 Riolu setup. Very strong to make sure you have access to both Mega Lucario. We don't also know if Xavier caught last game that the 2 Mega Lucario made Nicholas not really pay attention to the game on board. We don't know what Xavier's thinking about that, so it could be part of the plan to get 2 Lucario in play and sort of, bling out your deck in such a way your opponent's not thinking about those alternative win conditions.
Finding the Duskull here and the Dreepy. Also, I do believe that Budu is already in hand thanks to the attachment for turn onto this Monkey Dory, or unless no Budu, unfortunately. So items may well be on for Nicholas here, choosing to go with the Duskull because one is in the prizes, and that's more key to get set up here than going with Budu and Itchy Pollen here. So it's just the pass on over to Xavier. Items are good to go, and what a way to just top deck your Mega Lucario. Don't have to use Mega Signal for it.
Not this time.
But we all know in the crowd what is coming up here. Chooses to air balloon the Makuhita, so is just going to have to attach for turn onto the Lunatone, unfortunately. And thanks to Monkey Dory's resistance, that's not exactly what you want to see.
No, but you're going to be able to fix that problem with a Premium Power Pro, which is not disabled because of Itchy Pollen, because we did not see any Itchy Pollen. So it's very possible to take this KO, but it's going to be dependent on this hand of 8 cards off the Lily's Determination. So Xavier's crossing his fingers. He's smiling a little bit, going, I've got this good setup right here. I'm going to take a knockout. Always feels good to get some knockouts against Dragapult when they spend their late game just completely bullying your side of the board. Xavier, do you have it?
You have has the Premium Power Pro, which is good. I would love to see a Hariyama as well here, going for one of the Dreepies, or even just the Duskull right then and there too. So we'll see how he wants to maneuver. It does have the Ultra Ball if he wants to commit all the way here and then start to power up the Makuhita on the bench when it goes into that Hariyama, or even just get the second Riolu ready to go here. But I think the biggest threat on Nicholas's board is going... Oh, okay, just double Mega Lucario here, just ready to go.
A lot of strategy to go with the double Mega Lucario, not just for the mind game, but if you have 2 of them set up, you can go back and forth between them. They're not going to get easily knocked out at the same time using the Phantom Dive. It's one way to keep your board from being board wiped, which has been a major concern versus these Dragapult decks all day and all of yesterday. Dragapult will assemble a board wipe out of nowhere. You have no attackers. You have nothing to do. That is not a problem when you have 2 340 HP massive monsters just sitting ready to go. And also, every time you play the Hariyama, it becomes something that sits on your bench and could get locked in if it doesn't have enough energy attached to it. So part of the strategy, too, is to make sure you don't get something trapped in the active that you'd like to preserve, because Air Balloon will only subtract 2 from the retreat cost. Hariyama's retreat cost is not 2, it's much higher. That means Evolving right now could get it locked in the active, unable to attack, unable to do anything, and could give Nicholas all the opportunity to set up the board state. So making sure that you don't accidentally stumble into a position that could pay some dividends for your opponent's favor in the other couple turns is a legitimate reason not to go for the Hariyama here. But I would have loved to see a Dreepy knockout, frankly.
Well, the Risky Ruins, 1 of 2 is going down here. We know that Nicholas does have the Lily's Determination in hand, does get the attach for turn as well onto the Dracloak. So still has to be working a little bit more up here. What was really funny while Nicholas shuffles up is that he started to grab the dice to signify damage counters, and then Xavier played down the Premium Power Pro because of Monkey Dory's resistance here as well, but draws into 2 Dragapults and also draws into another Dracloak as well here, and a bunch of energy as well. This is actually a great Lily's Determination, plus also does have the Dusclops in hand as well, so that Duskull can be evolved up too. This was a great Lily's Determination. Fantastic stuff.
Mm-hmm. And that last recon directive, choosing between Buddy Poffin and Dreepy, either both going to get you a Dreepy the same way. So holding onto the Buddy Poffin creates a scenario where you can get another Duskull if you need to, or another Dreepy in another turn or two. Creates a lot of options. You lose nothing on the card that gets placed back in the bottom. And having 3 recon directives is always a great time because you get to see a total of 6 cards. 3 of them you get to take because each recon directive looks at the top 2, puts 1 at the bottom, puts 1 in your hand. So it's almost like using a supporter for free.
Unfortunately, no other Duskull in the deck because there's one at the top right of the prizes. So could very well just be using this Buddy Buddy Poffin just as a search here, but couldn't have asked for anything more off of that Lily's Determination as well, right? You got all of your Drakloaks up and running, have the energy for next turn as well, and the Pokepad, I believe, still in the hand for that Dusk Noir if he so chooses to use it. I want to see if there's going to be a Crispin pivot. I think at this point, for next turn at least, this Monkey Dory is going to try and soak some of the damage at least with that Aura Jab here, but there's that Pokepad being mentioned here. What's he going to grab?
I mean, every time you're able to force your opponent to waste a Premium Power Pro on the Monkey Dory is another Premium Power Pro they can't use for the rest of the turn. There's that Budu you were talking about earlier. Okay, maybe we're going to see a Itchy Pollen, which is going to prevent any number of ways to search out for a Hariyama that could protect the bench Dracloak with the energy on it, and it's going to protect the Dusclops at the same time, allowing another turn to build up for the attachment off of either Rose's Encouragement or Crispin to get that 300 damage with weakness. Incredible, incredible effect that Dragapult never has to worry about because Dragapult's not weak to anything.
It's unfortunate, though. The attachment for turn was committed to the Drakloak, so Monkey Dory is going to be sitting there as the sponge here. Does draw into the Hariyama and a Fighting Gong as well, so do see a couple of ways to not only evolve up into Hariyama from Makuhita, but also re-establish another Makuhita as well to get that double gust going. And then here's kind of the conundrum that Xavier is in. Sees the Drakloak with the energy on it. That's a great target. But also, I mean, Dusk Noir is technically a threat. So would you rather get rid of the Dusclops and, you know, be free of Shadowbind, or just be willing to take control of the energy play kind of going on here? The problem is that Wally's Compassion was gone off the discard from Secret Box.
No, Wally's Compassion means every single damage counter is going to stay on Xavier's side of the field. Xavier's going to have to play very quickly, take these knockouts, avoid setting up more and more turns for Nicholas to do Dragapult's thing and stack damage all across the board. Now, with the attachment of the Rocky Energy this turn, that's going to make it very easy to retreat this active Mega Lucario and prevent it from being knocked out in later turns with the Phantom Dive's secondary effect, dealing 6 damage counters to the bench. That is a great attachment. The problem is if Lucario has to retreat, that energy goes in the discard, the effect is no longer active, so making sure it stays on your Lucario is important. Fortunately, no one is playing an Enhanced Hammer to discard special energy. Rocky Energy is a special energy, so it's going to remain on the board unless Xavier decides to change that.
What's so unfortunate, too, for Nicholas is that this is prime time now for an unfair stamp or a judge, but they are both not available. They are both in the prizes here. So not even a Pheasantipity can draw himself out of this. Might just have to accept the turn of Itchy Pollen coming, and that's going to be one way that he has to kind of slow down the match to give himself time. There's the Crispin, though. Could very well be sending some of the damage counters at least back to Mega Lucario to try and soften it up just a little bit, or just trying to get straight into Dragapult EX and start launching these damage counters because he's kind of behind now.
I'm glad he got the Budu out last turn because without the Budu being in play, it has a free retreat cost. That means it's easy to pull it back out of the active and get Dragapult there. Without that Budu, Crispin would not have been able to charge up this Dragapult with both energy at the same time because Crispin will only accelerate one. The other one has to count as your manual attachment. That means no retreating without a tool. And we just saw the Risky Ruins come down, so it's not like Jamming Tower or something. But there is a scenario where you could have gotten locked in had Budu not come down, even though it seems like an easy prize liability. Not quite so versus this Lucario deck that doesn't have a lot of bench damage capability.
I think Nicholas is picking up Xavier's discard pile because he wants to count how many Premium Power Pros have been used. The thing is, only one has been used, but I'm trying to remember. I think one Gravity Mountain went down, so there is one left in the deck. Wants to be able to hit those high numbers too here. But look at that. Look at all the cards in hand. Might just want to stay a little bit safer. Maybe even attack with the second Mega Lucario. He does have a switch in hand at least here. But there's the attach for turn. The Rocky Energy onto the Makuhita. Wants to protect it from Phantom Dive as much as possible here. But I'm just not seeing the Premium Power Pro, the Gravity Mountain he would need. Maybe it's this Lily's Determination that'll give him both.
This strategy is really difficult because once you've got one damaged Lucario, The second damage Lucario, now you start looking at board wipe situations thanks to that Dust Noir. Whether or not it uses its Shadowbind attack, Cursed Blast could be enough to deal some major damage. Now, the current active Mega Lucario is at 140, not too bad. But Monkey Dory can creep in when you least expect it, and because of that risky Ruins play, Meowth having the 2 damage counters on it, it is entirely possible that Nicholas could take 3 prizes off of the active Mega Lucario, even with the Rocky Energy, no matter where it is on the board. So all those attempts to protect Lucario were not quite going to cut it with that Wally's Compassion available. Instead, Xavier is just going to look at that hand, try to figure out what are my routes to taking any prizes whatsoever. Is there any way to knock out this Dragapult?
No damage modifiers in the hand other than that Black Belt's training, but unfortunately it's a supporter here. So unfortunately, Xavier's going to have to come to terms with either losing this Mega Lucario in the active or pay the retreat cost to get it out of there as well here. And still looking at everything that's going on, has to be very, very careful.
Mm-hmm. There's a strategy here where you choose to Hariyama and get rid of the Dust Noir by taking a knockout there using Mega Brave, and because you can't do it with Aura Jab thanks to resistance and also Dust Noir HP being very high. I don't know if that's quite the move though, because searching out that Soul Rock with the Ultra Ball, maybe you're protecting yourself from losing your draw engine or thinning your deck.
Unfortunately, the other Hariyama is unfortunately in the discard and unable to be used. So it is just going to have to be the Mega Brave attack for 270, hanging on by a thread here for Nicholas, but definitely a lot happier with his board state through here now. Back on over to his side. He's definitely much more comfortable here. Does have the turn now to get Monkey Dory set up and ready to go. I see a very big prime target in that Makuhita with 2 energy already attached onto it. Will Xavier be able to respond from what will definitely be a 4 prize turn?
I mean, Xavier is probably worried about an unfair stamp at any point. So not taking a knockout this turn, he's thinking, yeah, I've prevented from, maybe a Pheasantipity from coming into play. There's not going to be any unfair stamp. Doesn't know that both of those cards are unavailable to Nicholas. So instead, just kind of looking at a board state where you're ahead on prizes for now, but I wouldn't count on that for much longer, especially with this Dragapult not being the only dragon type with energy on it. It only takes a Crispin, it only takes a Rose's Encouragement, and all of a sudden Nicholas has another big attacker with too much HP to get rid of without all those Premium Power Pro or your Black Belt's training. But anytime you use Black Belt's training, you can't go search for more cards. There's just so many pieces that combine together to create a game state where Xavier is looking for too many things at once.
Still 8 cards off of the Lily's determination because Nicholas hasn't taken any prizes yet. Still, though, Dust Noir waiting in the wings to be used. I think at this point we'll be seeing more Curse Blast rather than Shadowbind. It is a little bit starting to kind of get a little bit later into the game. But choosing to set up the Drakcloak instead of going for Monkey Dory here does still have access to that copy of Rosa's Encouragement inside of his deck list as well. So choosing to be a little bit more safe here. Once again, no hand disrupt at all available for Nicholas as of right now. But still, I mean, this is going to be a massive 4 prize turn.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things that Xavier could do to come out of this situation, but just needs to have the cards in hand for them. Nicholas is doing everything possible to take those prizes, and at least this turn, and finally get those tools. There it is. Goodbye, Lucario.
Well, I might think that's actually a Rocky Energy onto the Makuhita, so that will be able to avoid the damage counters thanks to the effect.
Ooh, that's kind of a misplay there.
Fortunate, but that's okay.
Oh, no, they figured it out. They figured it out.
Yeah, no, I think we're good. Yep, and that is the Rocky Energy preventing the damage counters from coming down there. But here we go, back on over to Xavier's side, starting always with a Lunar Cycle. Get 3 cards. Think about what exactly and how you want to play this. Does have the Black Belt's training, but the Dragapult's damaged enough here. I mean, there's only 50 left. Maybe trying to find a pivot into attacking with Cosmic Beam this turn and getting your Mega Lucario out of harm's way, but choosing also to potentially just keep going with this Mega Lucario. It's a great attacker. That Aura Jab, as we've been praising this entire time, does allow for a lot of energy to be attached to the Pokemon on your bench here, but 4 cards for each player. Hopefully that's enough. And honestly, for Nicholas, who just got his unfair stamp off the prizes, it's going back in the deck.
Interesting choice to choose Judge over the unfair stamp here. I really like the thought here because the plan is simple. If you use the Judge right now, you can have the unfair stamp later at almost any time. You're not going to be playing Meowth to search for a Judge, quite frankly. If you're playing Meowth, you're looking for a boss. So keeping that unfair stamp around could let you dig a little bit deeper in those later turns where you don't have Recon Directive available. Whereas if you use Judge right now, you are able, or if you use unfair stamp right now and save the Judge for later, you won't be able to dig as deep. You won't have quite as many options, and there's more time for Xavier to use Lunar Cycle to get out of the problem.
Well, look at this. What a kind judge Nicholas has been brought into here. Does have the Psychic Energy to attach onto the Dracloak, and does have the Ultra Ball if all things go wrong here as well to get back into a Dragapult. But this is the only attacker technically on board. This Dusk Noir can very still well do it, but at this point, right, you might want to, oh my goodness, double
Rosa.
Oh no, it's not even going to be the, oh my god,
wow.
It just handshake. It is going to be enough there. Mega Lucario with 4 damage counters already onto its Shadowbind thanks to Mega Lucario's weakness. And that's just straight up and away here. Nicholas Moffitt using Dusk Noir out of all things. It's not a Dragapult deck, I guess, anymore.
No, that Dragapult Dusk Noir combination clearly is what did it for Nicholas today. We saw it the first time in day 1. We're seeing it again in day 2. Nicholas is going to be advancing directly to our top 4 while we wait for the other asymmetric cut games to complete. This was a top 8 match. Wow. The Rose's encouragement was so out of left field. I'm sitting here going, I wonder what he's going to do in this next turn. Not even realizing the game was right there. He's Meowthing. He's going to go get his supporter. The supporter's going to attach the energy. Everything came out all at once. Even Xavier was surprised.
I mean, I think our judges were surprised as well. All smiles on the stage, but let's take a look at our first top 8 match here at the Los Angeles Regional Championships. Both players had great board states, but it is Big Bad Dragapult that is able to use Budew and just stack up those small damage counters over time. And while, yes, Xavier goes up in the prize card so easily, these Mega Pokemon are huge liabilities, and they give you a ton of prize cards as well.
I mean, just looking at the turns where multiple damage counters were placed on both Mega Lucario at the same time created a circumstance where Xavier's a little bit worried about any of his attackers getting knocked out. That makes it less likely to keep chaining Mega Brave attacks together, which is enough to start taking one-hit KOs on some of these resistant Pokemon. Being unable to use those options, and also knowing that 6 prizes are going to be cleared out with just 2 big knockouts, does put Xavier in a position where he needs to make the most of his trades. Nicholas, on the other hand, just creating unorthodox combos, making sure every single piece on his board is pointed in the right direction to take those prizes super quickly. So quickly, in fact, that if you blink, you'll miss it.
Yeah, and speaking of if you blink, you'll miss it, the Rosa's encouragement not to Dragapult, but to Dusk Noir to finish it off here. And it was just Shadowbind to take game here. Nicholas Moffitt getting very creative with